Hello everyone, this is Shahna Moideen, Assistant Professor of English from BWOC Department. Today I would like to discuss with you a syllabus from Calicut University Litmosphere paper, module number 1, that is Literature Initiation. Moving to our topic, as everyone has discussed about literature. Any piece of paper, any written work, even a music can be considered as literature. As we all know, this is a global world, like where English is the only language which is globally accepted by each and everyone. In the same way, the first year students who are following Calicut University would have to describe many things which has been connected to literature. So the first unit which we are going to discuss is about George Louis Burgess. So let's introduce him. Who is he? The facts about George Louis Burgess. There are 6 amazing facts of Louis George Burgess. Let's discuss. The first thing what we would like to share is he has published his many books under pseudonym Francisco Bustos. He was a great short story writer. But since we are dealing with his poetry, even though we will just go through some interesting facts how he connected or he got connected to the literature. Number 1 is he published his first book under the pseudonym of Francisco Bustos, like he was guided by him. Number 2, he did not like the city Barcelona. He called it filthy, rectangular, ugly, and vulgar. There are some points where George Louis Burgess discussed. He never liked the place he ought to be, like Barcelona. He said it's filthy, which was untidy, rectangular, which have no means of living, ugly. Maybe it may be not so much he was living that happily, and so on. The third point is he won the Nobel Prize for Literature after being nominated multiple times. As we all know that we try a lot the same way George Louis Burgess also had many things he tried with his life, and finally he were also the winner of the Nobel Prize. The fourth point, he lost his vision in 1955, a very important point. Now what will happen? If a person loses eyesight, what or how will be the earning now? That's the next question we are going to discuss. He is best known for writing short story and is a very good translator. Any language to Spanish. This is a very important point about George Louis Burgess. You know why? Because the poetry which we are dealing is also being translated to English by George Louis Burgess. And the final point is before he was famous, he began writing advertisements for yogurt. So, before coming to this field, he was very fond of writing advertisement for the yogurt. Now, getting to the poetry, the art of poetry. Let's take a small review. In the poem, The Art of Poetry by George Louis Burgess, the author describes what poetry is to him, what it represents, and how it makes him feel. Very important point. We have been given a lot of definition of poetry. For example, let me just give you one example. Like everyone have said eventually. Poetry is a spontaneous overflow of feelings and emotion. I hope that everyone have listened about this discrimination, this definition of poetry. But our George Louis Burgers have a very different concept about poetry. He is telling some different points about poetry. Burgers was born in Argentina in August of 1899. Now let's just go through some points about George Louis Burgers. He was born in Argentina in August of 1899. Even during his infancy in South Africa, Burgers accomplished his first published translation when he was only 9 years old. So we can say that from very small age, he was very much interested towards literature, towards writing, towards art. What is art? We know literature is itself an art. When he was 15 years old, Burgers and his family relocated to Europe, and throughout a decade, the Argentine experienced varying European culture. As we all have the same problem when after the 12th, when we get shifted to a new college, we have many problems to settle there. The same way, our George Louis Burgers was also having some difficulty when he got migrated. As a result, much of Burgers' literary work was influenced by Western European culture. So we can see when we read George Louis Burgers' any work, poetry, short stories, we can understand or we may feel that he have a tend towards European culture. Burgers became considerably affected during in his mid to late 50s when he became completely blind, resulting from a hereditary disease on his father's side. So what was the reason I said the fifth point in the last presentation was very much important? He became blind in the 50s after seeing his half of his life. Now, there may be many problems arising because of this blindness. This blindness was caused due to hereditary disease from his father's side. Losing his sight did not stop him from becoming the new director of the National Public Library of the Republic of Argentina and give speeches around the world. So he was a person who was very much self-motivated, very much influenced, very much self-respected person. Even though he was blind, he never gave up. Now, why we are discussing this point before learning our poetry? Before going towards our poetry, it's very important to learn who has written the poetry. It's very important to know the background of the poet. After the background only, we can get connected towards our poetry. So all my dear students, this was just a small introduction of George Louis Burgers. In our next class, we will deal much more about his poetry, the interpretations of the poetry, and so all. That's all for today. Thank you.